have an African Ghula chest for sale, and this starts off on our list at number 10. So what you're looking at right here isn't just a typical wooden urn. Apparently this African Ghula chest has a ton of demonic energies trapped inside of it, and it's being sold by a Satanic minister on eBay. What happened to eBay? I remember going on eBay, it used to be like an innocent site. You could buy some bicycle tires on there, clothes, other accessories. So what the heck is a demonic box doing on eBay? If living dangerously is something that you like to do, then you might want to consider buying it. It could be yours for a low price of $150. The seller said that he will include a sealed document that tells you everything you need to know about this item, but all sales are final. He will not accept returns under any circumstances, even if you're haunted for the rest of your life. A haunted painting brings us to number 9. There are actually a ton of haunted paintings being sold on eBay right now, but this one seems to be the most terrifying one to me. The seller lives in New Orleans and he bought this from a friend. His friend decided to paint the demons that he saw in his house and then sell them for profits. Hopefully he was selling them so he can be able to afford to pay a priest, to come bless his house and perform an exorcism. But anyways, now this guy wants to get rid of this painting because it brought him nothing but pain and trouble. He said that since he brought the painting home, he has constantly been feeling unwell and he can't think straight and he always feels like something bad is about to happen. Such a bad feeling. So if you want all of these things to happen to you, you can place your bid starting at $125, or you could just skip the bidding and just buy it outright for $500. For $500. Popping into number 8 on our list, just like that, we have the monkey in the box. This is kind of like Jack in the Box, but possessed. Sounds like fun, right? I don't know, like what do you do? Like a monkey comes out and then boom, you're possessed for the rest of your life? Well, the owner says that sometimes the spirit will try to trick you and not let you open the box. It is also said that when you crank the handle, it will wake up the spirit that is connected with it. As you can see, the toy is really damaged from a bunch of people dropping it out of fear. The seller said that the spirit is known to be both playful and frightful, and that you should never ever give it to a child. If the spirit likes you, it will be playful, but if it doesn't like you, then it will make your life a living hell. There is no returns on this creepy item, so if you want to be plagued with this haunted monkey in a box, then place your bids now. Take the thrill of a lifetime. I don't know if I would consider that to be thrillful. A haunted mirror breaks onto this list at number 7. Two roommates found this haunted mirror in the trash outside of their apartment building, and they decided to bring it in. That was probably the worst mistake that they could have done because it has brought them intense bad luck. Ever since this mirror was brought into their unit, the roommates claimed that they had extreme misery, financial problems, and illness. One of them even said that he would wake up screaming right in the middle of the night with stabbing pains. They've also experienced flickering lights, dark shadows appearing in the mirror, and orbs of light circling the room. I mean, no thanks. They believe that someone might have been murdered in front of the mirror, and that's why it is so evil. So the two of them have decided to auction off this mirror on eBay for £100. But I don't get it. If this mirror is bringing you nothing but bad luck, then why don't you just put it out there in the curb, maybe light it on fire, bury it? I don't know why they're trying to sell it to bring on all this bad stuff onto someone else, and all for £100. Haunted jewelry brings us to number 6. I personally don't know anyone who would willingly want to buy a piece of haunted jewelry, but as it turns out, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people on eBay trying to sell some of their creepy old haunted jewelry. Like, I kid you not. I get why you're trying to sell it. They don't want to be cursed and they want to try to make some profits, but who in their right mind would buy it? I came across a possessed ring being sold on eBay. According to the seller, the ring is possessed by an evil spirit named Aiden. He was 19 years old when he died in a motorcycle accident. Apparently he has the ability to turn on and off lights, close and open doors, and leaves a faint smell of men's cologne when he is active. I mean, that is pretty damn creepy if you ask me. It's like basically having a broken Alexa who keeps messing around with the lights, and you know what though, I wouldn't have to invest in any Febreze because this guy's just cologning my whole house. So maybe this isn't a bad thing. A vintage doll brings us to number 5. Something that looks like this has to be haunted. I mean, how can it not be? I'm literally gonna have nightmares about her face tonight, and then the next day after that, and the next day after that for sure. This has to be one of the creepiest dolls that I've ever seen. I think I'd rather have the real life Annabelle in my house, but thinking about that now, yeah, I'd rather not have any of them. Could you imagine if the Annabelle doll went up for sale or for auction? Like, why would you buy it? Okay, but going back to the original story here, this is Josephine, and she is a vintage doll from the 20s. An Etsy user purchased her from an estate sale from a deceased woman. The doll is said to be haunted and possessed by the spirits of the woman who used to own the estate. And judging by the look on her face, I don't think that the doll is too happy. The owner has complained that she hears an evil laugh while she's sleeping, objects will go missing, and she can even hear door slams and footsteps. I mean, is this doll epileptic? She wants to get rid of this thing ASAP, and if you're interested in never sleeping again, you can purchase it. It's actually really affordable. It's $20.83. Number 4 brings us to haunted clowns. I don't have a fear of haunted clowns, but it's a very common thing out there. I don't know why. Well, if you have an irrational fear of clowns, you might want to look away for this one, because here we have a 5-inch long clown doll that is said to be haunted with spirits. If this sounds like your idea of fun, then head over to eBay, place your bid. He's being sold right now for 25 bucks. But according to the description, Chip is not a toy to play with, and that's because he likes to mess with you. He likes to turn on and off TVs and lights, and he also has the ability to move your furniture. Once he enters your house, you will see a shadowy figure lurking around you, and you might even hear strange noises at night. I don't even want a clown doll in my house, and I don't know who would want this thing to be in their house. And why is this guy trying to sell it? What if it doesn't sell for like years? I would get rid of this thing instantly. And for the people that do buy it, they must be super brave, willing to take the risk, and have some weird obsession with clowns that are haunted. A haunted teddy bear brings us to number 3. Why do we gotta have a haunted teddy bear? Why can't it just be cute and cuddly and just stay like that? Well, this bear is being auctioned off for $910. Pretty damn expensive, and the shocking part, there's 62 bids on it already. Well, let me read you guys some of the description that they have on it, and you guys let me know if you guys would also put a bid on it as well. For me, if it was a lot cheaper than $910, I might put a bid on it, but like once it passes like $11, I'm out. Okay, the seller wrote, "All I know is I want this damned thing out of my house. Something is dreadfully wrong with this bear. I never used to be in power of darkness, but now I do. I take no responsibility for what may happen afterwards, and for God's sake, don't keep it anywhere near children." Okay, it doesn't seem promising. I don't know why 62 people would have bid on this. It doesn't make sense. Did they miss the description? I think the people who placed bids want to buy this bear so they can give it to their enemies. It's like, here you go, bud. Enjoy. Enjoy life. Well, that would be my only logical explanation, because I'm so confused. Up next on our list, and at number 2, we have a haunted Ouija board. And I know what you guys must be thinking. Aren't Ouija boards fake? That's what I'm thinking. I don't know if I believe in the whole thing, but I have a crazy story for you. For my birthday weekend, we're up at a cottage, and my wife and our friends decided to play the Ouija board. I don't know if you call it playing, or I don't get it. But they, for some reason, wanted to talk to spirits, and they got one. They got someone who apparently died in the house, died in the kitchen. They were killed by her dad. I don't know, it was talking to them on the board, and it was moving. And I heard the story like this from everyone who was playing. Everyone was asking questions that no one would know the answer to. Their hands weren't on the board, and it answered it all correctly. And then there was one time where they started to freak out, and they all lifted their hands up. And they promised me, they're not lying about it, but it started to move on its own. I mean, is this real life right now? What the heck is going on? I heard the story from all of them, my friends, my wife, but I still think I'm being bamboozled. Well, according to this listing, going back to the story here, this Ouija board has been involved in a ton of satanic rituals, and it has been able to summon some pretty evil demons and spirits. There was one instance where one person who used this board had an out-of-body experience where she actually felt like she was dead. She was finally able to wake up and she was super terrified. Now she is listing this Ouija board up for sale and it could be yours for a low price if you order it now for $520. Apparently it even comes with the dirt that was taken from a haunted graveyard where a satanic group performed one of their rituals on. I don't think I'm going to be bidding on this item. I feel like I could spend my money on more important things that won't kill me in my sleep. A possessed China doll breaks onto this list at number 1. And that's all the languages I can say one in. I'm not very talented. Well, first I want you guys to take a look at this thing. Despite looking pretty innocent, this doll has been known to attack its owners. She has been put up for sale on eBay a bunch of times because the owners were either seriously injured or just creeped out by this doll. One of the owners woke up with scratches all over her face, while another owner said that the doll would set off fire alarms and rip off her jewelry while she's asleep. But despite her dark past and brutal history with her previous owners, she keeps being sold on eBay and other buyers are taking a risk when they let her into their home. But for now, she's being auctioned off on eBay and she's just patiently waiting there so she can wreak havoc on her next owners. The Cursed Mirror of Myrtle's Plantation breaks onto this list at number 9. The Myrtle's Plantation is believed to be one of the most haunted places in the entire world. But one of the most haunted items on the premises has to be this cursed mirror. The mirror was brought into the home back in 1980, and according to the legend, the mirror contains the spirit of Sarah Woodruff and her children who were poisoned to death by a slave on the plantation. It is said that whenever a family member dies, you're supposed to cover up all the mirrors so that the spirits don't get trapped or lost. Well, I guess this family missed that memo. Guests at the plantation have complained about seeing figures lurking in the mirror and a child-sized handprints on the glass. Take a look at these pictures and see if you can spot the ghost or handprint in the mirror. I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna be getting rid of all my mirrors tonight. Next up on this list, and at number 8, we have the Crying Boy painting. Can we just take a look at this thing for a moment? Okay, who the heck would actually want this painting in their house? It's just so sad and depressing. Well, what makes things even worse is that this painting is believed to be cursed. This painting was made by an artist in the 1950s, and for some odd reason, it became famous. It was mass produced and replicated so that it could be sold around the country. However, people who hung this painting inside of their room reported that their house caught on fire for no apparent reason. But that's not even the most disturbing part of the story. Apparently the painting of the crying boy would be completely untouched by the fire. Some people say that this is a pure coincidence, but the undamaged painting hasn't been explained. We have another cursed painting here at number 7. The Hands Resist Him painting is another piece of artwork that I definitely wouldn't want in my house. I mean, just take a look at this thing. Is this real life right now? What is with the crying children? I don't find this comforting or visually pleasing to look at. Well, this cursed painting has been terrifying people for decades, and I'll tell you why. The painting was put up on auction on eBay back in February of 2000. According to the seller, the painting carried some kind of curse. They said that the characters in the painting would move at night, and that they would sometimes leave the painting and enter the room where it was being displayed. But people also believe by just looking at the painting, you feel extremely ill or have a really unpleasant experience. The Bassano vase comes crashing in onto this list at number 6. No one knows where this curse originated from or how this vase came to be so powerful. But it is believed that this vase contains a terrible curse, and anyone who comes into possession of it will be doomed and die shortly after. Even with this curse, the vase was auctioned off for about $2,250, and the person that bought it died within just 3 months. 3 more deaths of the new owners followed until finally a desperate family demanded that the police take it and seal it up forever. Robert the Doll, you guys know this one. Well, he's next up on this list at number 5. This guy is just creepy. I feel like Robert the Doll doesn't need a long introduction, so in short, he's terrifying. He's a cursed doll that is capable of misfortune and even murder. Currently, he sits in a clear box at the Fort East Martello Museum in Florida, but before that, he belonged to a family until he was given away. He can apparently move across the room on his own, follow you with his creepy beady eyes, and he can also wreak havoc in your life if you disrespect him. I mean, wow, Robert the Doll sounds like so much fun, right? Well, apparently there are a ton of stories about this doll trying to kill people. The fun and games are over. Sounds like we have a real life Chucky doll on our hands. Driving into number 4, we have James Dean's cursed car. This was a 1955 Porsche Spider that was cared for and loved by James Dean. You would think that this car was properly taken care of and it wouldn't be cursed, right? Well, that's not the case here. Apparently if anyone gets into this car, they would be found dead within a week, and that's exactly what happened to James Dean. He was found dead inside of it, but things get even more creepy. As the car was being worked on, the car fell on one of the mechanic's legs and crushed both of them, but the curse kept going on. When the car got a new owner, he lost control and crashed it into a tree, dying right on impact. Oh, and 2 people who tried to steal the car were severely injured. I think it's best if we leave this car permanently in a park and maybe torch it. The woman from Lem statue brings us to number 3. This limestone statue is also known as the goddess of death because anyone who comes into contact with this mysterious statue will die from unknown causes. I mean, wow, let's break this statue and bury it deep in the ground where it belongs, and we shouldn't mark it. And did I mention that every family who possessed this statue died? I mean, yeah. And one of the families were so scared by the strange deaths, so they decided to donate the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, where it actually remains there today. So shortly after the statue was placed in the museum, the people who came into close contact with it died. No one has handled this statue since because of its scary supernatural powers. This item is actually placed behind a strong glass and locked where no human hands can touch it.
In our number 10 spot today we have the Dybbuk box. The box, which was originally just a plain old wine box, is said to have been possessed by a Dybbuk, which, in Jewish mythology, is a malicious demon that takes over the bodies of living people and uses them for evil. The box began to gain attention in 2001 when it was being auctioned off on eBay. The seller explained that he had bought it at an estate sale of a woman who had survived the Holocaust. When he first opened the box, he found 2 1920s pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of black hair bound with a cord, a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom, a small golden wine goblet, 1 dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with 4 octopus-shaped legs. Since he bought the box, he reported that strange things began happening, such as really horrific nightmares for him and anyone who had stayed around or touched the box, and when he gave the box to his mother as a birthday gift, she suffered a stroke the same day. The box ended up in the hands of Zach Bagan, who is a paranormal investigator, and it now resides in his haunted museum. The box also gained even more attention in 2018 when Post Malone touched it, and has apparently been dealing with the repercussions of that ever since. In our number 9 spot today we have the Iceman. Okay, this one is not an object because it is rather a mummy who was once a real living person, but I still had to include him on this list today because this story is wild. The mummy of Otzi, who is also referred to as the Iceman, was found in 1991 in the Otsal Alps in Italy. It is believed that Otzi lived around 3000 BCE and his body became mummified and preserved because of the glacier that surrounded him post-mortem. While this is an incredibly interesting discovery, the finding of Otzi may have come in a package with an old curse just waiting to be released. Here's the thing, the people who helped with the discovery of Otzi are all dying under mysterious circumstances. I mean, we're currently at person number 7 within 1 year, so that's very suspicious. When molecular archaeologist Tom Loy was writing a book about Otzi, he passed away from a blood-related condition that he was diagnosed with shortly after becoming involved with the Iceman. The German tourist Helmut Simon, who discovered the mummy, fell to his death while hiking in the same spot he saw Otzi. Dieter Warneck, who was the head of the mountain rescue team that was assigned to find the mummy, died of a heart attack at age 45, just an hour after Simon's funeral. To avoid this becoming an hour-long list, I'll stop here, but that is just half of those who seemingly fell victim to the curse of the Iceman. I don't know, maybe disturbing a man who's been in the same spot for 53 centuries wasn't the best idea anyone has ever had. In our number 8 spot today we have the Hope Diamond. This gorgeous, unusually large diamond is a blue color and worth an insane $2 $250 million. In the off chance you have that kind of money laying around, I still wouldn't recommend purchasing it because it is said to be cursed. The curse dates back to the 17th century, and it is said that whoever wears the diamond will have great misfortune and misery. Legend goes that the diamond was stolen from the eye of a sculpted statue of the Hindu goddess Sita, and since then it has been cursing whoever owns or possesses the 115-carat diamond. Stories of the horrible fates of those who have since owned the diamond include people taking their own lives, people being killed intentionally by others, and some accounts even claim that the owner was, quote, torn to pieces, which sounds like one of the worst fates out there. There have since been replicas made of the stone, and I think just to be as safe as possible, I'll probably stay away from those. Just in case. In our number 7 spot today we have Robert the Doll. Annabelle gets a lot of attention for being a haunted doll, but Robert is just as terrifying. Robert the Doll was a childhood birthday gift from a grandfather to his grandson, who was also named Robert, but more often went by Gene. The story claims that while growing up with Robert, Gene would often be heard by his parents in his bedrooms having conversations with himself in 2 entirely different voices. His parents would sometimes be woken up in the middle of the night to the sound of Gene screaming, only to find him completely frightened in bed with overturned furniture around him. Gene would then blame Robert for all of the strange happenings, and at the time, no one really believed him. Gene kept Robert into adulthood, and it became what people would describe as an unhealthy relationship. Apparently, Gene took Robert everywhere with him and spoke as if he was a living entity rather than a doll. Okay, this story is already not great, but it gets worse. Gene lived in a house as an adult that was called the Artist's House. Robert would be left in the upstairs window where children in the area reported seeing the doll disappear and reappear, and they all chose to just stay clear of the house. After Gene passed away in 1974, a woman named Myrtle purchased the house, and apparently Robert as well. Visitors of the house could swear that they could hear footsteps and giggling coming from the attic where Robert was, and some even claimed to see the doll's expression changed if someone spoke poorly of Gene. Myrtle reported Robert moving around the house on his own, and after 20 years she decided she had had enough and donated him to a museum. Robert still lives in the museum where he is safely locked up, but it is said that he still likes to place a little curse on those who take his photo without permission. The walls of the museum near Robert's glass case are riddled with notes from previous visitors and naysayers who are begging Robert for his forgiveness and asking him to remove any curse he has placed on them. In our number 6 spot today we have the Atlantis Ring. The Atlantis Ring was originally made of clay, and it was found in 1860 in the Valley of the Kings in a tomb of an Egyptian high priest. It was then passed on to Howard Carter, who kept it until he passed away in 1939. The ring was believed to be at least 5,000 years old, and it had geometric symbols carved into it that were unlike anything known in Egypt. Here's where the story gets a little weird though. Howard is one of the people who discovered King Tut's tomb, and he would later tell people he was wearing a talisman when the tomb was opened, also known as the Atlantis Ring. He claimed that the ring gave him protection, and that just might be true because he is the only member of the team who didn't die a mysterious death after the opening of the tomb. Even those who visited shortly after the opening of the tomb were subject to this curse, with a total of 18 victims in the end. Howard said that the ring is what protected him against whatever evil forces were at play. So I guess maybe the Atlantis Ring is more like an anti-cursed object? I don't know, but what I do know is that it is all quite curious. There are now replicas that are sold, but I'm not sure if any hold the power of the real deal. In our number 5 spot today we have Thomas Busby's chair. Thomas was a man who lived in Thirsk, North Yorkshire, and wasn't known as a very nice man, but he really loved his chair. I guess we all gotta have something. In 1702 he found his father-in-law sitting in it, and it sparked an argument between the two. The father-in-law threatened to take his daughter back, which should have never been a threat considering she's a grown woman, but I guess that's what went on in 1702. Anyway, that's when Busby kicked him out of the house. After this, Busby ended up going over to the father-in-law's house and actually killed him with a hammer and then hid his body in the woods. Of course, the body ended up being found, and this led to Busby getting convicted and sentenced to death. It is said that on his ride to the execution, he asked to stop by his favorite pub for a beer, and this request was fulfilled. Apparently, as he finished his drink, he said, "May sudden death come to anyone who dares sit in my chair." I really don't know what it is with this guy in his chair, but while it currently resides in the Thirsk cursed museum, it has been recorded that many terrible fates have been met by the people who have sat in the chair. In 1972, it was decided to hang the chair from the ceiling so that no one could ever sit in it again, which is probably for the best. So now, knowing this story, I want you to let me know in the comments, if you had the chance, would you sit in the chair? I wouldn't. In our number 4 spot today we have Annabelle the doll. When I saw the 2014 Annabelle movie, I had no idea it was actually based on a real life doll, but since starting my job here at Most Amazing Top 10, I know all about the real story. This doll now resides inside of the Warrens Occult Museum, where it absolutely belongs, but this story starts off with a college student named Donna who received the doll as a gift from her mother, who had purchased it from an antique store. Donna and her roommate started to notice some pretty creepy things happening and swore that the doll was moving. They said it would appear in different places and positions throughout their apartment before things began to escalate. Donna began to find notes that said help in her apartment, and one night found the doll in a different position and covered in some sort of red substance. The girls then decided to contact a medium who solidified all of their beliefs and told them that the doll had been possessed by the spirit of someone who was killed in their apartment building. For some reason, the girls didn't immediately get rid of the doll, and the story goes that their friend Lou, who was at the girls' apartment, heard strange noises one night and went to investigate, and he was then attacked and killed by Annabelle. The girls finally contacted a priest who told them that the doll was possessed by a demon straight from hell, and then put them in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren. They tried to do an exorcism on the doll, but it apparently failed, and now it is kept in a glass box in the museum, where it hopefully cannot and will never do any more damage. In our number 3 spot today we have the Uluru Rock. The Uluru Rock is a large sandstone formation that is located in the southern part of the Northern Territory in Australia. It is sometimes known as Ayers Rock, but regardless of what it is called, this area is sacred for the people indigenous to this place. This is part of the reason that those who visit the rock are asked not to take anything from the site. Despite this, people of course still choose to smuggle pieces of the rock out of the area and home with them. Well, other than the bad karma and just in general feeling like a bad person for doing the one thing you're asked not to do, as it turns out, this rock may hold a more sinister secret. Those who have stolen rocks from the Uluru have experienced things like extremely bad luck, severe illness, and even sometimes the death of those they love. The curse these rocks hold is seemingly so bad that it is very common for the company that runs the tours of the formation to receive letters of apology that contain the stolen rocks. Apparently these letters come so often, at least one a day is expected. Maybe this is a weird coincidence, but it just seems to be happening a little too often for that to be the explanation. In our number 2 spot today we have the Bazzano vase. The Bazzano vase was cast from silver in the 15th century and was apparently a wedding present for a bride who lived in a small village in Napoli. On the wedding night, however, the bride was found dying on the floor with her hands wrapped around the vase. With her last breaths, she vowed to have her revenge, and at this point it became unclear whether the vase was already cursed, or perhaps if this may be what caused the curse in the first place. As time went on, the vase was handed from person to person within her family, and with each new owner came a mysterious death. Because of this, the family decided to hide the vase away in some sort of secret location, and this worked for a while, until the vase was unearthed once more in 1988. The vase also contained a piece of paper from the family that warned, "Beware, this vase brings death." Well, of course, whoever found the vase did not listen, and instead, they sold it once again. The first buyer, who is said to have been a pharmacist, owned the vase for 3 months before passing away under mysterious circumstances. Then there was the 37-year-old surgeon who died after having the vase for 2 months. After this was the archaeologist who only made it 3 months with this vase in his possession, and at this point you get where this is going. We don't know exactly where the vase ended up, but I'm hoping it's somewhere deep underground. Or maybe in space. Or maybe in the Mariana Trench. Just anywhere far away from all of us. In our number 1 spot today we have the Goddess of Death. This statue is sometimes also known as the Woman from Lem. This artifact, made out of limestone, was created sometime around 3500 BC, and it was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years it has belonged to many different families who have all been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides. However, the museum curator who handled the item was mysteriously killed a few days after. It is clear whatever curse this statue holds, it is strong and frightening.
Number 9. Gettysburg Rocks. Wow, you can really put a curse on anything. Next thing you know, there's going to be the cursed winds of Manitoba. These rocks have a little bit of history behind them. They come from Gettysburg Field, where the Battle of Gettysburg happened. It was back in 1863, where a bunch of dudes died by musket and by bayonet, and now all their ghosts are probably chilling there. I wonder if there's ghosts from opposite sides and they still hate each other. Or they're like, dude, I'm so sorry for stabbing you in the neck, man. That was so rude of me. Well, I guess the ghosts who chill there are pretty protective, because if you take one of these rocks from the field home, be prepared to have your life fall apart in the worst ways. From what I've researched, this curse won't kill you, but your life will unravel and you might wish you were dead. One guy had his wife and kids walk out on him, and then he got locked up in prison. So I don't know how much you like rocks, but I don't think these guys are worth it. Number 8. King Tut's Tomb. I think it's funny how if I go to a cemetery at night and start digging up bodies for some simple arts and crafts, it's called grave robbing and everybody thinks I'm crazy. But when an archaeologist does it, it's called science and preserving history. But for real, you're not going to catch me digging up any old bodies anytime, ancient or otherwise. Especially when the really old ones have curses on them. That pretty much ensures an early death. King Tut was dug up in 1922 and it was considered an incredible find, and everyone was super pumped. I can imagine everyone involved received 10 to 12 high fives that day. But their happiness soon turned into sadness because the people involved in the dig all started dying. Whatever black magic was thrown over this dead body had a very inventive imagination, because people were dying in all sorts of ways. Some got murdered while others killed themselves. I think my favorite is the guy who died from an infected mosquito bite. There should be a tagline on these things like, "Open the tomb and meet your doom." I'm going to trademark that before anyone takes it. Number 7. The Bassano Vase. This thing is so ballin' it's almost worth the curse. The vase is made of solid silver and it's from the 1400s. Imagine you have a dinner party and that thing is the centerpiece on your table. Everyone would know that you're a bad bitch, baby. Well, they would know that for like a month and then you would be dead, because that's what happens with this vase. The story behind the vase is that it was a wedding gift for a bride-to-be. Someone was really trying to show off by bringing the best gift. I mean, it was an Italian wedding. At least one person is going to try and show off. Well, the bride never got to enjoy it because she apparently died before she got married. In her final moments, she was clutching the vase and she swore vengeance on whoever killed her. It's unknown how she died, but most people think she was poisoned. The vase was taken by her family and passed down through generations. Everyone who owned the vase died within a few months of owning it. Eventually, this killer vase was taken by a priest and hidden away. It was discovered again, and there was a note on it that said, "Beware, this vase brings death." And guess what? It started killing people again. Museums didn't even want it. Now it's buried underground in a cemetery in a steel box. Number 5. The Gem of Sorrow. More rocks that are trying to kill you. At least this one's shiny. This little demon stone was taken from India in the 19th century when the British were taking over India. The British were ruthless and basically killed as many people as they could and took whatever they wanted, just as long as they could keep the country intact enough for them to still live there. You know, British Empire stuff. Well, one dude named W. Ferris took something that he shouldn't have. He thought it was a blue sapphire, but it was just a gemstone, and it ended up making him very ill and killed some of his family. So he gave it to a friend who then committed suicide. Now it's tucked away in a museum. Number 4. Virginia City Headstones. Okay, once again guys, don't take things away from graveyards. I was just joking earlier about the grave robbing. You're gonna go to a place where they keep dead bodies? Even if you're someone of science and you don't believe in superstitions at all, you at least need to be grossed out by the hygiene level. Ugh. It seems like there's a lot of dirty people out there because the old cemetery in Virginia City, Nevada gets stuff stolen from it all the time. Like, people steal everything from headstones to just rocks. But everything that you take from this place comes at a price. The curses range from getting sick to having all the people around you die. Definitely not worth it. People will often return what they've taken back to the spot they took it from because they can't handle the bad mojo that was just dropped on themselves. Sometimes they leave warning notes, which is so thoughtful. Number 3. The Terracotta Army. The army built in beautiful terracotta to protect a king in the afterlife after he died. You must have made a lot of enemies if you need an army to protect you after you died. If I died today, I would only need like 1 or 2 terracotta warriors. The army was discovered by a group of farmers, and they were probably so pumped to make this discovery, but little did they know it was probably the worst thing that had ever happened to them. I bet there was one guy who was at home with diarrhea, and today he's so happy for the liquid poops that came out of him. 2 farmers that were involved in the dig died very young, and another one committed suicide to save his family from the disease that was killing him. I think this is a tourist attraction that I'll skip. Number 2. Pompeii. Pompeii is the city that got turned into ash in an instant by a volcano, and has that dude that decided to bust a nut in his last moments. Imagine being remembered for thousands of years as the jerk-off guy. There was a kid I grew up with who people called Poonie because one time he slipped and his knee went in poo. Imagine if he was Poonie for his whole life and beyond. The legend says that the volcano destroyed Pompeii because a curse from the gods. Now people go there and take things and the curse goes home with them, and every year thousands of items are sent back with apology notes. Alright guys, I'm coming in at number 1 with Timur's curse. Timur was a ruler in the 1400s who was said to be hella ruthless and took no crap from anyone. After he died, he was buried, and it said that his tomb was cursed, and whoever opened it would have major bad mojo. What makes this curse so famous is that people think it affected World War II. Stalin thought it would be a good idea to dig up Timur because the curse is supposed to unleash an enemy even worse than Timur himself. Well, Stalin got what he wished for, because the day after he dug up the old mummy, Hitler did his surprise invasion on Russia. Oh baby, be careful what you wish for. This was the most brutal day in the war. 800,000 Soviets died that day. Stalin, what were you thinking, comrade? Well, eventually Stalin ordered to have Timur buried again, and it wasn't long after that the Soviets pushed back against the Germans and defeated their troops. Was it a curse, or was it just how things happen? I don't know.
Coming in at number 9, we have the Occult Museum Voodoo Dolls. Voodoo dolls in general are supernatural items. They're little effigies created in magical kind of practices, and for the person on the receiving end, they're bad juju. Pins are placed in the doll in order to harm the subject, which isn't great, not great at all. So with that in mind, a supernatural object used to invoke a curse, do you want to see the voodoo dolls from the Ed and Lorraine Warren Museum? Guys, you don't know how hard it is to say Ed and Lorraine Warren in one go. It's a tongue twister. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Either way, voodoo dolls. So there is actually a noose on the neck of one of the dolls, which kind of indicates that somebody might have died. The other one has its eyes gouged out, which isn't great either. Visually scary, but also actually scary. It seems that the doll collector came across these dolls and brought them home, only to find that her son's health began deteriorating. It seems that some of the witch's voodoo doll magic had been retained, and it was picked up the boy as a new vessel. The collector contacted the Warrens, who removed the doll, after which the boy made a full recovery. Thank goodness. However, it seems that the story continues. There was a visitor to the museum, and they broke the rules by touching one of the dolls, and later they were involved in a horrifying accident. Who's to blame here? Coming in at number 8, we have the Bassano vase. At first, the Bassano vase is a sight to behold. It's a beautifully carved silver vase from the 15th century. It's antique. But as it's on this list, you may have realised that actually it's a supernatural antique with a curse. Hurrah! The story goes that the vase was made for an Italian wedding as a gift to the bride, who is to be wed in a traditional ceremony in Napoli. On her wedding night, she was excited, but unfortunately an intruder broke in and stabbed her. She was found bleeding to death, clutching the vase. The legend has it that she promised to return and seek vengeance on the person who stopped her marrying her love. After her death, the vase was passed down through the family, but anyone who came in contact with it mysteriously fell ill, or they were met with serious misfortune. Following that, the vase was wrapped up and packed away, but unfortunately it was unearthed again hundreds of years later in the late 80s, when it also started making headlines for continuing its spate of deadly bad luck. Newspaper reports indicate that the vase was buried again in an undisclosed location, hoping that it would stay out of the way with human contact forever this time. Coming in at number 7, we have the evil eye. The curse of the evil eye. Although actually, this is an interesting twist at this point because these objects actually protect against curses. The evil eye is a curse cast by a malevolent and malicious glare given to a person when they aren't looking. If an evil eye is cast upon you, you are susceptible to injury or misfortune. It could even mean that you're set upon by animals. To protect yourself from the evil eye, usually people carry a talisman with an eye on it, which in themselves look pretty terrifying, but actually they're there to stare down a curse. The evil eye has been incorporated into a lot of protective objects, most popularly jewellery. Also, there are a lot of evil eye wall hangings and wind chimes. I feel like I'd quite like an evil eye bracelet so I can stare down a few evil eyes that have been looking my way recently, like bah! Reflected curse. Coming in at number 6, we have cursed tarot cards. Tarot cards are used in divination, for forecasting rather than predicting. Usually a person formulates a question and seeks an answer from the cards, a deck of 78 individual cards with different meanings. The most famous cards are Death, the Tower and the Devil, all thought to be bad omens, but of course that depends on your interpretation. Some people are convinced that their tarot decks can become cursed and that everything that's forecast will actually happen badly. There is also a superstition that burning tarot cards will bring a curse upon you. It seems that the only way to be rid of a cursed deck of tarots is to drown them, soak them all face down in water. Honestly, I'm not so sure about that. I think they work by energy, so if you have bad energy, maybe you'll get bad cards. Coming in at number 5, we have Maori masks. Maori is the name of the indigenous people of New Zealand and Polynesia. Masks are made to honour their ancestors, and they're often beautifully carved and slightly intimidating to look at. The masks are thought to contain the souls of warriors who died in battle, so pretty supernatural and ghostly if you ask me. While men are fine to be going around touching a Maori mask, females have a much more uncertain time. Legend has it you should never seek out a Maori mask if you're pregnant or menstruating because you could invoke an ancient curse. In October 2010, a museum in New Zealand made headlines when it told a pregnant woman to stay away from the sacred artifacts. Speaking of sacred, at number 4 we have Uluru. Is a rock formation an object? Either way, I'm putting it on this list. Uluru or Ayers Rock is both sacred and cursed, if the stories are to be believed. The large sandstone monolith in the Northern Territory of Central Australia is sacred to Aboriginal tribes, the first people of the land. They believe that it is inhabited by the ancestral spirits of the land. The rock started forming 550 million years ago, and it's believed that if a visitor takes a rock from the spot, they will suffer serious misfortune, sometimes even grave misfortune. There have been reports of people returning stones that they've taken from Ayers Rock to try and end their suffering. Shouldn't be taking the rocks in the first place. Coming in at number 3, we have the Terracotta Army. I kind of believe that the Terracotta Army have an air of the supernatural about them. They were, after all, a work of funeral art that were buried with the purpose of protecting an emperor in the afterlife. The thousands of terracotta figures were buried with the first emperor of China in 210 BCE, but they were rediscovered by local farmers thousands of years later in 1974 in Yang Village's rural land. For them though, the discovery was actually a curse. The government didn't pay them well for their findings, and then they took their land and their homes off them in order to build a tourist centre. The government made a lot of money, they didn't. One of the farmers who discovered the soldiers actually killed himself, and the others were met with bad luck, many of whom have died penniless. Coming into number 2, whatever you do, do not touch the demon book. The Book of Soiga is an early 16th century treatise on demonology written in Latin. There are only 2 copies of the book in the world known to us, and one was possessed by the Elizabethan scholar John Dee. Dee spent his life trying to interpret the text, which was filled with spells and rituals. He had a good understanding of what was happening, apart from the final 36 pages, which he just couldn't decipher. He and his trusted friend Edward Kelly summoned the spirit of Uriel to tell them the meaning of the last pages. The legend says that Uriel then possessed Kelly and spoke through him. He claimed that the book came into existence when Adam entered paradise and that it could only be properly interpreted by the archangel Michael himself. He also said that whoever deciphers the meaning of the last 36 pages will be destined to die 2.5 2.5 years later. Why 2.5? We don't know, but I wouldn't want to be reading that book. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the Delhi Purple Sapphire. Also known as the Gem of Sorrow, the Delhi Purple Sapphire was housed in a sacred temple in India, the Temple of Indra in Kanpur. Indra, by the way, is the Hindu god of war and thunderstorms. Amid the British-led turmoil in India, it wasn't uncommon for soldiers to loot sacred temples, stealing their jewels and smuggling them back to Britain. This is exactly what happened with the purple sapphire in question. Colonel W. Ferris took it back to England only to be met with terrible luck. Financial misfortunes befell him, his family got very sick, things started to fall apart. He gave the stone away, and the person who received it committed suicide. The next owner of the sapphire was Edward Heron Allen, who was also met with really bad luck. He bound the stone with silver and attached 2 scarab beetles, and it seemed like the bad luck was contained. However, his dreams were frequently haunted by Hindu yogis until he gave the stone away. The stone then was returned to him, so he threw it in Regent's Canal in London. No prizes for guessing that actually it came back. The story continues over another 100 or so years. More recently, it found its way to a museum, and one night the museum curator was travelling with the stone only to be injured by a terrible storm with his wife.
Starting us off at number 10 is the China set. Sort of anticlimactic, I know, but I feel like the backstory of this one more than makes up for it. 3 pieces of the set were found in a wad of old newspapers under the porch of a house made sometime in the early 1900s. It had clearly been there for a long ass time since it was covered by a bunch of decayed dirt and so the homeowner kind of just put it on their windowsill and forgot about it. A few weeks later, one of his old neighbors walked by and noticed the china and asked him where he got them, saying they looked really similar to a set another neighbor used to own. Now the other neighbor was a Mrs. Dillon who used to get beaten by her husband, and then one day out of nowhere her husband just wound up dead. Mrs. Dillon then became very reclusive and quickly moved away without telling anyone, not even her friends. The homeowner appreciated the story, but low-key didn't really care until the next morning. They found the set inside their house when they damn well never brought it inside. Both cups even had tea in them, like can you imagine? They quickly put the set in a shoebox and left it outside, and it was picked up by somebody else. That someone admitted that the first time they ever cleaned and wiped it down there were 3 or 4 dips in the lights above them, and every time they've cleaned it after that the same thing always happens, the lights keep dimming. It ended up being sold to this person for $45, but I honestly think Mrs. Dillon killed her husband, then left the set behind, and now the spirit of her disgusting husband just cursed the set. But, plot twist, in his afterlife he realized what a horrible person he was, so to make up for that he just fills cups with tea. I don't know if that makes up for being an abusive husband, but okay.
At number 9 we have a haunted clown doll. This sounds like the crossover no one asked for. Clowns and ghosts on their own are bad enough, but now we're packing them together in one complete package. This is like mixing a kick in the nuts with a slap in the face. It's rude and painful. Well, if you're trying to ruin your own life, then you should look this one up. You can find it on eBay for $200. So next month, why don't you skip on paying your car insurance and then put a down payment on a cursed doll that will probably make you have nightmares about being strangled to death by balloons. You know, if you buy something like this and horrible things happen to you, you kind of deserve it. Instead of trying to invite Satan into your home, why don't you take your money and invest it in a nice retirement savings plan? If you make the poor financial choice of investing in this doll, you can hope to be haunted by the 2 dead children who apparently wake you up by shaking your bed. These ghosts haunt the doll. So not only will your life be full of demonic forces, you'll get those puffy eyes that show the public how distressed you are.
Coming in at number 8 now is the bra, and yes, I am fully serious, I assure you. Now this bra was actually made in the 50s and it's a size 32A, and I feel like a lot of guys just don't actually know what that means, so I'm about to tell you. Now the number stands for the inches around a girl's bust, so the circumference essentially, and the letter is the size of the cup part itself. You're welcome. Now, according to the seller of this item on eBay, Tonya_Rose, the bra is afflicted with the spirit of a sexy woman, and still not joking. Wearing it will give the person a constant stream of gifts and admiration, and you can actually reap benefits from it even if you don't wear it. If you place the bra by a lit white candle, you can actually see the woman's full body apparition right in front of you, and if it's a red candle, you can engage more explicitly with that apparition. I don't even know how that would go or who proved that that happens. I feel like some people will see this as a curse and others as a blessing, so I mean, to you, boo.
At number 7 we have an African Ghula chest. At first glance this thing looks like art your aunt would pick up after she reads a book about African history. Wow, Aunt Claire, you can really tell how you support African culture by the chest you bought that was made in China. But if you dive into the description of this a little further, you can see that this is not what it seems. Apparently a Ghula chest is a wooden urn with carvings in it that is used to house the soul of a demon. The perfect housewarming gift for a new couple. This one I found on eBay and was the home of a ghoul jinn, a spirit which is supposed to be really bad. They like to mess your life up and cause all sorts of havoc. So if there's someone in your life who you really don't like, then you should buy them this urn and have it sent to their home. The person selling this chest is a satanic priest, so you know this thing is legit. This isn't any bootleg Ghula chest, this is the real deal. Upon purchase, the priest will send you instructions with the chest detailing everything about the spirit which is attached to it and how to handle it. I'm sure this is just like getting a fish. Watch a few YouTube videos and you'll be fine. A big note on this one is there are no returns. Once you buy this thing, there is no takebacks. Once it is yours, unless you leave it on someone's doorstep.
At number 6 now is an African voodoo hoof rattle. Now this one actually links in with Che's African Ghula chest because they're both being sold by the same damn satanic minister on eBay. Now the hoof rattle is a whopping 9 inches long and there's only one like it in the whole world. Now Reverend Dante refuses to go into detail about exactly why it's cursed, he just says he finds it very unsettling. And if a satanic minister finds something unsettling, then you know something is very wrong with it, because even frickin' Satan couldn't scare him. Satan was a walk in the park for this guy compared to this voodoo hoof rattle. And I'm assuming because it's a voodoo rattle, it has all like the bad juju associated with said voodoo, because I mean, let's face it, if you're in possession of a voodoo item, your haters are just gonna be dropping like flies. Just innocently. Well, I don't know what happened. Just dropped like flies. Either way, missed me with that. Filling at number 4 slot is the jewelry box, and I know jewelry boxes are always just haunted or cursed, but this one is different. Again, the bio of every boy on Tinder, and plot twist, they are not different. Either way, this one is an antique jewelry box with a clock inside of it, so when you open it, the clock sort of just gets lifted up like this, and the jewelry part is like a little drawer underneath, and I hope you got what I meant from all my miscellaneous gesturing. Now the Utah-based owner shared that the clock stops at 3:22 a.m. constantly, and by now we know that the 3 to 4 a.m. window is witching hour, people. Not a good time. Now the lid of the box opens by itself all the time and weirdly enough almost sucks up jewelry. The owner said there have been times where she hasn't put jewelry in the box, but overnight it somehow just ended up inside of it. But then on other occasions she's woken up and the jewelry is just all over the floor like the box threw it out like it has a mind of its own. So if that sounds appealing to you, it can be yours for a mere $160 US.
At number 3 we have a Victorian birthing chair. Another gem from the world of eBay. If any of you at home are doing exactly what I did and are asking what the hell is a Victorian birthing chair, then let me just tell you it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a big old chair with a hole in it that you can give birth through. Think of it as a toilet if you wanted to poop on your kitchen floor. Back in the day, a lady would sit down in this and then shoot a baby right onto the linoleum. Apparently, this particular birthing chair is embedded with all the torment of who knows how many ladies giving birth on it. I think that's a top-notch way to curse an item. Just have people use it while they're going through the most painful experience of their lives. The owner says some women died in childbirth while on this chair, raising the spooky factor at least 10 points. And if you're wondering how much it's going to cost you to curse your future with the angry spirits of dead women going through labor, it's $300. So right now you can pick up a PlayStation VR headset or a chair stained with placenta fluid. You know, this is a really tough choice. Is there any chance I could call a friend or ask an audience member? Where's Regis filming? And finally in the number 1 spot we have Eve, another haunted doll. Do you think demons are attracted to dolls because they're creepy, or are dolls creepy because demons are attracted to them? It's kind of like a chicken or the egg situation. If you're not creeped out by Eve's appearance, then maybe the backstory will be enough to set you over the edge. Eve has the spirit attached to her. It's the soul of a young girl. This girl found her lover sleeping with her sister, killed them both, and then killed herself. Her soul is now forever tormented by being betrayed, and she is now dead, of course. The person selling selling this doll is very eager to get rid of it because she is kept up at night from the doll crying. Heartbreak takes a long time to get over. She also said the doll causes her physical pain like headaches, but that could be because she's just not getting enough sleep. And if you're one of the brave ones out there who want to buy Eve, you should know that she's selling for $1,666. Whoa, what a spooky price. I like how the seller added that extra 1 at the beginning. She was like, I want to get rid of this haunted doll, but I'm also not a sucker.
Moving on to number 8, we have the Anguished Man. While it is unknown who and when it was created, this painting is said to carry some kind of curse. It is rumored that whoever created it mixed his blood in with the oil paint, and when it was finished being created, he ended up committing suicide. When a woman who is referred to as Mrs. Robinson originally took possession of the painting after it was given to her by a family friend, she immediately knew that something was wrong with it. She ended up passing it along to her grandson Sean, who currently still owns the painting. The Robinson family has reported many different strange events that have happened in relation to the painting, such as hearing screams and groans coming from it. Sean has even uploaded videos to YouTube where he shows these paranormal events. I'm not sure why the family has decided to keep the painting, but I guess as long as it's not hurting anyone, it's okay. Continuing on to number 7, we have the real life Annabelle doll. When I saw the 2014 Annabelle movie, I had no idea it was actually based on a real life doll. The doll now resides inside of Warren's Occult Museum, where it absolutely belongs. There was a college student named Donna who received the doll as a gift from her mother, who had purchased it from an antique store. Donna and her roommate started to notice some pretty creepy things happening and swore that the doll was moving. They said it would appear in different places and positions throughout their apartment before things began to escalate. Donna began to find notes that said "help" in her apartment, and one night found the doll in a different position and covered in some sort of red substance. The girls then decided to contact a medium who solidified all of their beliefs and told them that the doll had been possessed by the spirit of someone who was killed in their apartment building. For some reason, the girls didn't immediately get rid of the doll, and the story goes that their friend Lou, who was at the girls' apartment, heard strange noises one night and went to investigate, and he was then attacked and killed by Annabelle. The girls finally contacted a priest who told them that the doll was possessed by a demon straight from hell, and then put them in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are paranormal investigators. They tried to do an exorcism on the doll, but it apparently failed, and now it is kept in a glass box in the museum. I didn't know that a glass box is the safest place for a paranormal item, but as long as it isn't hurting anyone, that's the important thing. Moving on to number 6, we have the Ballista Balls. A ballista was used in the Roman military, and it was kind of similar to a crossbow, but much larger and could shoot arrows and stones. In 1989, there were some archaeologists that were working by the Israeli-Syrian border when they found these large stones close to what seemed to be the remains of a ballista, but around 1995, the stones ended up getting stolen, but it took a while for anyone to notice. Fast forward to 2015, and the same stones that were stolen ended up in the courtyard of the museum in Israel with a note left from the person who stole them. The note explained that ever since they took them, he had experienced terrible luck and believed the stones were the reason. He had a very successful business that suddenly began to fail after he took the stones, and later his family abandoned him and he was forced to get rid of almost all of his possessions to settle all of his debts so as to not go bankrupt. He mentioned that he believed the stones were cursed and that they were the root of all of his problems. Whether or not these stones are actually cursed or this was just some pretty heavy karma, I hope this guy has been able to get his life back on track. Halfway down the list in our number 5 spot, we have the Goddess of Death statue, who is also known as the Woman from the Lem. This artifact made out of limestone was created sometime around 3500 BC and was found in Cyprus in 1878. Over the years, it has belonged to many different families who all have been ruined and dismantled by death. After the first 6 years of ownership, all 7 members of the first family died. It then moved on to a second owner, and after 4 years, death began to come to him and his family. There was then a long period where it was unclaimed, but once the third family got a hold of it, several members of that family began to die as well. The third family ended up turning it over to the Royal Scottish Museum, where it thankfully still resides. Moving on to number 4, we have the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond was most likely cut from a mine in India and placed in a statue. It is a huge 45 carats and has a beautiful rare blue color. It is one of the most famous diamonds in the world, partially for its beauty, but also because of all of the mysterious happenings happenings surrounding it. One day a thief stole the diamond and is said to have died quite soon after. From then on, anyone who owned or even touched the diamond was said to have met an ill fate. Whether it was suicide, a massacre, or a pack of wild dogs, the diamond seemed to have placed a curse on any and everyone who got near it. In 1958, it was fortunately donated to the Smithsonian and has been safe there ever since. I wonder if it got moved from the museum, if the curse would continue. Moving on to number 3, we have the Dybbuk box. The box, which was originally just a plain old wine box, is said to have been possessed by a Dybbuk, which in Jewish mythology is a malicious demon. The box began to gain attention in 2001 when it was being auctioned off on eBay. The seller explained that he had bought it at an estate sale of a woman who had survived the Holocaust. When he first opened the book, he found 2 1920s pennies, a lock of blonde hair bound with a cord, a lock of black or brown hair bound with a cord, a small statue engraved with the Hebrew word shalom, a small golden wine goblet, 1 dried rosebud, and a single candle holder with 4 octopus-shaped legs. Since he bought the box, he reported that strange things began happening, such as really horrific nightmares for him and anyone who had stayed around or touched the box, and when he gave the box to his mother as a birthday gift, she suffered a stroke the same day. The box ended up in the hands of Zach Bagan, who is a paranormal investigator, and it now resides in his haunted museum. The box also gained even more attention in 2018 when Post Malone touched it and has apparently been dealing with the repercussions of that ever since. Coming on to number 2, we have the Dark Mirror. The Dark Mirror now belongs to the Traveling Museum of the Occult, who got it from the mirror's original owner. The mirror is said to show some pretty unsettling images when you stare into it. The original owner said that they purchased it from a psychic fair in the Columbus area and were shocked with the visions they saw when looking into the glass. Visitors to the Traveling Museum have claimed to see some pretty crazy things, such as their own corpse when they gaze into the mirror. It's pretty creepy stuff. In our number 1 spot today, we have the cursed portrait of Spanish military leader Bernardo de Galvez. Bernardo was born in Spain in 1746 and died under strange circumstances in 1786, and was famous for helping American colonies in the War of Independence. The painting is on display at the Galvez Hotel in Galveston, Texas, which is said to be one of the most haunted hotels, in part because of this portrait. The portrait is at the end of a hallway in the hotel, and guests have reported the eyes following their every move. People also report a cold or uncomfortable feeling when they get close to the painting, and this is said to be Bernardo's spirit. Some people even swear they can feel him following them around the hotel. It is also said that any picture you try and take of the portrait will come out blurry and distorted unless you ask Bernardo for permission.